Hi parents, I hope you guys had a great week. I'm glad the weather is more mild this week. It's been a nicer drive to work and supervision been a lot more enjoyable. I'll give you a summary of what we did this week in class, but I do want to begin by saying how proud I am of the kids. They've, across the board, with their effort, their behavior, their excitement, it's just been such a great week. Their journals, even this morning, they're getting through them almost in like 5 minutes now, a few of them, and it's becoming part of our routine and it's becoming a lot easier for them. So I'm really proud to see that because I know it was a challenging thing to introduce at first. So this week we read The Cat in the Hat, and then we're going to read Hop on a Pop. And these ones were books that focused on rhyming because, as I said, we introduced that to the kids this week. And we're going to start very slow with rhyming, and we're going to look at all the different families and compare their endings, and that also helps a lot with obviously spelling or phonemic awareness. Then we also looked at the book If Kids Ruled the World. This is a book we already read at the beginning of the year, but I revisited this book because after reading this book, one of our focus bins was a reflection on the book, and the reflection question was, if you ruled the world, what would you do? So I told you last week I was working on who, what, where, when, and why questions with the kids, but before I jump to that, I really want them to start developing their imagination and creativity around books. So that's why we're going to start doing weekly reflections around books. And then, I have it here, and then we're going to use these visuals to help the kids understand who, what, where, when, why, and how questions. So this is what we're going to introduce to the students. So these are questions, these are the types of questions that you should be asking the kids when you're reading with them at night. It just helps develop their comprehension and their language skills. This week we looked at letter Q, tough letter. So we talked always about proper formation, so an uppercase letter is always a big letter, so we do an O from top to bottom, or a circle from top to bottom, and then we just add a small tail. We talked about the tail being diagonal and then the length of the tail not being too long or too short. Then we looked at lowercase q. We make a magic C under the dotted line, a line down, and we kick up. I also showed the kids different fonts because Q's sometimes, well, you guys know this, parents on computers or in TV shows or whatever it may be, or books, they sometimes take off the kick. So the kids were getting confused with the idea. They were like, well, is it a backwards P, there a B, a D? It was a little bit confusing. So I just told them that sometimes when we use different fonts, they remove the kick. So that's how we form our letter Q. We spent a lot of week talking about Q because Q is always written with the letter U, followed by U. So we talked about, I kind of described it to the kids, or I explained it, sorry, to the kids, in that they are twins. Q is always buddies up with U, but they're not identical twins. They don't look the same. So Q and U look very different. And then obviously we talked about the letter U, and when letter U is by itself, it says and it doesn't have a Q with it. So I really tried every day to explain that to the kids, and I'm pretty sure they understand it, that Q and U are together when Q comes first, but when U is by itself, it doesn't need a Q. So we are going to continue talking about that. And then there's this great video. Jen found this great video. It's called ABC. It's an ABC Mouse video, and it's all about the letter Q. I'll just turn my computer down. But the kids.
Next to a U, it sounds like quack, as in quack quack and quail. Quack 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 quiver and quack 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 quiz.
Anyways, this is a great video if you guys want to show them at home on your YouTube or on the iPads, because it looks at lots of different Q words, and it highlights this idea that Q is always followed by a U. And it actually has some really great vocabulary, like quints, quintets, quilt, some things, words the kids were asking me about because they had never heard of them. So it's a great video. It's the letter Q song by ABC Mouse. Then we looked at our focus bins for this week. I'll explain them. We had, as I said, that reflection. So these are some of the kids. This was a reflection piece from one of our girls. So if you could rule the world, what would you do? And she says, if I ruled the world, I would be a fairy. And as I told you before, we're working on putting lots of details in our picture. So that was beautiful and great coloring. She really took her time. This student said, if I ruled the world, I would build towers and eat cookies after work. And then this student said, if I ruled the world, I would be a queen and have a fancy castle. That's what I would do too. Just kidding. Then we have, so those were the reflection pieces, and that takes a lot of time. And the scribing was obviously done by the teacher because the focus of this bin was not on writing, it was about being creative and focusing on the drawing and adding details and reflecting on a book. Then with me this week, the kids, we worked on, I differentiated it based on where the students were at. Some students are sounding out on their own, so what they had to do is they would pull a picture from the jar, apple, and then they would write the word, they phonetically sound out the word apple. And I was there to support them, but to be honest, the kids did such a fantastic job, and I'll show you, I'll just pull this bin and see if we, yeah, there's one there. So I won't, oh, this has a name on it. Okay, anyway, so what they did is they just wrote words down the lines, and I allowed them to either do 5, or if they wanted to keep going, they could keep going. Now parents, when I get the kids to phonetically sound out, I am not concerned about their printing and what it looks like. For me, it's just, I want the kids to sit there and try to sound it out. I don't want them worrying about the formation in this specific activity. However, if it was printing practice, then of course, proper formation, letters that are small, letters that are tall, letters that are fall, that would be my expectation that they are doing that. So if you, when you look in their books, if you're like, oh, why all of a sudden was their writing maybe not as neat, that's why. That was not the focus of the activity, it was just on the sounding out. So they could sound out words on their own, which was really great to see. So for example, this student has ball, house, sun, apple, dog, zebra, mouse, octopus, bunny. Now parents, I would never put the red on, I just happened to have the red marker in my hand that day, but the kids didn't see this. I just did it after, so when you look at their books at demonstrational learning, you could see how what the word that they were attempting to sound out was. But the kids, I wouldn't have seen the red. We just put that in there after, and more for your guys' sake. And then, so that was with me. And then, oh yeah, if the kids weren't at the sounding out area stage yet, no problem. What they did with me is we'd pull from our word tiles. We'd look at a word. We'd look at the letters. We'd talk about blends. I would just, like, they would tell me the letters. We'd talk about formation, and then they would write it. They would scribe it, so they would copy it. So, based on my professional opinion, I decided which kids needed what. Then we had, so that was 1, 2, 3 focus bins, and then this week we introduced iPads to the kids. So the game that they got to play, I think this iPad might be a, okay, we'll wait, we'll talk about that after. I'll wait for that one to turn on. Then this week we also did guided drawings. We haven't finished them yet. We did a guided penguin drawing, and then we are gonna do like a watercolor with salt background next week as a focus bin. So the kids, you can always see their creativity. This one gave them an eyeglass or one of those spectacles, which was cute. Here I pulled this one because I was so impressed by the details in the eye that this student did. And this was something that wasn't in her work at the beginning of the year. So it's great progress. It's great progress. I was very proud. And a bow tie. So they all did their penguins, and then they just crayon them, and then we'll watercolor the penguins and the backgrounds next week. And then, okay, so on the iPad, what we do is we lock it into one game, and this was a game that they played this week. It was called Little Speller 3-Letter Words. Now this is a great game because it looks at letters, sounds, and CVC words and small 3-letter words. So it's great because it kind of hits every level, because for students who aren't sounding out, well, it's still constant alphabet recognition, and for those who are sounding out, it's showing them how to spell certain words, and they're sounding it out with it. So it's a great game. Hat. So it'll say hat.
H-A-T. Fantastic. You spelled the word hat.
And then
H-A-T.
So it's very repetitive, and then if we sat in with them, I might say, okay, sound that word out with me. At. So it just depended. Now be careful, parents, because if you go back to that one, that hat, the A's fancy. I had a conversation with the kids when we had another activity that had those fancy A's, to show them again that different fonts look different sometimes. Don't ask me why in a game like this they put an A like that, but they did. So just explain that with the kids, or if you're playing it even with your younger children or something, if you like the game, that those A's, just something to bring your child's attention to. Then we did our practice books, of course, letter. We caught the kids up because last week we skipped P. So we worked on letter P, and then we'll finish up letter Q as well. So really fantastic job. And what was nice about P and Q is that they were both letters that fall. So it was nice to have that kind of repetition because there's not too many letters in the alphabet that fall. And then our last focus bin, sorry, I jumped around. I forgot I didn't explain this focus bin. Our last focus bin this week was consonant sound maps. So it left out the vowels. So every consonant in the alphabet, at least the ones that we've hit so far, had a different mat. So what the students had to do is they laid out their mats on my carpet, and then in the bag, we dumped out the bag into like a bin, and what the students had to do was they'd have to pull a picture, like net, and then they'd have to put it under letter N, or cricket, and they'd put it under letter C or K, whatever they thought it was. And then there was lots of pictures in here. But this game was great because it worked on, again, phonemic awareness and initial sounds. It worked on teamwork. They had one bin and they had to share it. They had to set it up together. So it was really great to see finally that the kids are really understanding how to work together in a focus bin. Because I remember when I had similar setup, games that were similar to this setup, not with sounds, but let's say they had to divvy up cards with when we did our rhyming, that they really struggled to share and to share the workload. I didn't have any issues with that this week, which was really wonderful to see. And then lastly, parents, what we've been doing at the end of each day, along with our hangman games, bingo, we played this week, I introduced the ACT family to the students with some visuals and the words. So we just looked at solely the ACT family, and then we did a little bit of comparison to the OGG family. But anyways, we reviewed this every day, and then I'll eventually put it up on the board as we continue to introduce new families. So next week we'll look at the OGG family and the N, like EN, ending families. So that'll help the students with their reading, with their phonemic and phonological awareness. And then also, parents, our kids are doing so fantastic with their writing. But I kind of was reflecting as a teacher this week, and I thought, you know what, I put such a focus on writing. And of course we read every day with the kids, but I'm gonna start introducing more big books to the students and start pointing out those blends, because my kids are doing great with sounding out their writing, but then I realized when I'm sitting and reading with them, I want it to become a little bit quicker to them. So I thought maybe I need to focus a little bit more on reading as well in the class, and especially now that we have our home reading program and the kids are reading each day. So that's something to look forward to, and that's what we'll be working on. We're gonna be starting an ocean inquiry next week. And I think I'm looking around to see if I forgot anything, and that's it, parents. It's been a really great week, another really great week, so thank you. And we'll see you next week.